Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the HR Asia webinar on culture continuity. My name is William Ng, and I'm the publisher and editor-in-chief of HR Asia, the region's leading media brand for senior HR professionals. Today's webinar is brought to you by HR Asia and Elabram. For those who have just joined us, thank you. And please feel free to ask questions to any of our panelists today. We'll try to address as many as we can within the time that we have assigned for this webinar. If you haven't done so, please subscribe to this YouTube channel to be notified of new content as they become available. With us today are three HR leaders from different industries and background. We'll start with Mr. Aloysius Budi on my left. Mr. Aloysius Budi Santoso is the Chief of Corporate Human Capital Development at Astra International. From Hong Kong, we have Ms. Flora He, Human Resources Director and Head of HR for Hong Kong and Macau at GSK. And last but not least, from Singapore, we have Mr. Tan Toi Chia, Senior Vice President for Corporate Planning and Group HR at Certis. We're delighted and honored to have your presence here today to share with us on the topic of corporate culture and how that may have changed following the pandemic. As Peter Drucker has famously said, culture eats strategy for breakfast. As HR practitioners, we are all well aware of the utmost importance of a strong, well-articulated culture in determining not just employee engagement, but also the success and failure of our very organizations. Before we begin, maybe ask a question to all the audience who are joining us now so that we can get to know you a little bit better. Would you type in the comment section which market or country you are tuning in from? If you're from Singapore, just type Singapore or SG. If you're from Malaysia, type Malaysia or MY, Hong Kong, China, and so on. Please let us know where you're from so that when we address your questions later and when we talk about culture later, we can at least have some understanding of who is listening in. All right, let me begin with the first question for our panelists. We shall go on a clockwise basis, starting with Budi. Tell us a little bit about your organization and how has the pandemic affected your operations, Budi?
Okay, thank you, William. Thank you all. My organization is the Astra International. Is one of the largest group in Indonesia. Under this group, that we have more than 200 companies and more than 200,000 employees. And we are in the various line of the business, from automotive, mining, financial sector, agribusiness, infrastructure, etc. How pandemic impact to our business? Definitely impact across our line of the business. I say in the automotive sector is one of our anchors, core business. Is the market decline more than 50%, 55%. Even our infrastructure, toll road is also the traffic is decline 30 until 40%. In the financial sectors also impacted because now that every people try to restructure their loan. So overall, of course, that the pandemic really gives the big impact to us, William.
All right, I think let's see if most other countries. What about yourself, Flora? Tell us a bit about your organization as well as how the pandemic has actually affected your operations.
Sorry,
we lost you there for a while.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay. Yeah, and just definitely we are operating as a top pharma globally. So of course the pandemic came in different waves, and in Hong Kong, unfortunately, we were pretty much at the stage as a mainland China that we were just hit it without too much of the side of this COVID-19 immediately after the Chinese New Year. And the number one impact to the organization operation is that how we to make sure that our people is secure and safe from the high and from the hygiene perspective. Number two is that we deal with the HCP, the hospital clinic professional every day in the nature of our business. So we have to pull back all our entire sales force and to stop all the face-to-face interaction with HCP and their visit to the clinics and hospitals. So instead, when we think about our way to resume, we leverage a lot of a digital way to engage with our HCP, number one, and number two, how to make sure that our patients still get the drugs being supplied to their own hands. So these are the major two questions that we faced at the first wave of the pandemic.
But have you, in the pharmaceutical business, have you seen business stagnating? Has it gone up or has it decreased during this period?
Okay, I think those it always come up as a question when we talk about the pharma business, and of course, like China and Hong Kong, who were impacted in the first wave, our business were being impacted in the first quarter. In the other side of the world, actually, it was not. So as a whole, GSK actually in quarter one, our entire business was still recording very significant growth. In our quarter one business, when we have our pharma, vaccine, and consumer health products all together, it's still like a double digit increase. Yeah, but definitely the business will be impacted when the pandemic or going down to the second wave and then to the rest of the other countries. We see the impact. We are experiencing that.
So this is because of the demand or is because of the logistics?
I think it's a combination of both. I mean, it's natural that the patient may try to avoid to get to the hospital if it's not a emergency, right? And then in most of the cases, like people when they're trying to get the vaccination, they probably will delay their vaccination schedule. For instance, it's typical that like even the mom or the baby, they will be cautious to reduce the visit to the hospital or clinics if it's unnecessary. This is from the demand perspective and logistics as well. Yeah, you can imagine. So globally, that has been impact.
That makes a lot of sense. Even my doctor is complaining that say, business has gone down by more than half because of the semi-lockdown. Nobody is catching the flu, nobody is catching the cold, so nobody's seeing doctor for that. Everybody's getting healthier because of the pandemic. So
yeah, because everybody's wearing a mask right now, so the respiratory disease has been reduced to some extent, actually.
Right. So to wrap up the first question with you, Tocha, tell us a bit more about your organization and how has the pandemic affected your operations?
Sure, thanks, William. So I'm with Cerdis. Cerdis is the largest security company in Singapore. One of our largest businesses in Singapore is at the airport for aviation security, but also in generally supporting a lot of the activities at the airport. In Hong Kong, we are number one, number two security player as well. And then Australia, we are the third largest security player, again, with a very large aviation business. We are probably the largest and maybe close to the sole provider of aviation security and support services in Sydney Airport, the country's main gateway. We also support Adelaide, Canberra airports. In Qatar, we are also one of the largest players at Hamad International. It's also a very big client of ours. That background should give you a sense of how we're impacted. Nobody's really traveling for any reason, much less business, right? And so our aviation business is large. It has been impacted greatly. Our other business is also impacted. Our people, the guards, our guards are in front of the public, in front of other people most of the time. And so they too are worried. We do a lot of guarding, a lot of security for hospitals as well. And that's naturally, to anybody's imagination, a place to be a little bit fearful of. So how it's impacted business comes in many, many forms for us. While aviation business has declined temporarily, we hope, there are other needs at the airport and with government and with other commercial and offices that need different types of security, and our folks have all stepped up to do that. In Singapore, we are we dish out and we serve quarantine orders for people who have come to close contact with COVID-infected patients. So that's not a small amount of activity.
Sure.
But also means that our staff are put into positions of a different risk landscape than they were before. And they are very stressed. Their families are very stressed. And we, along with them, get very stressed. So as a business, we've had to reassess the risks for all the work that we do. We can't say no to our clients. At least we don't want to say no to our clients. We like to be known as a trusted business to be with in good times and in bad. But we seek always our clients' understanding. And so it's not negotiating with our clients and how best to still undertake what's necessary to protect their staff, their buildings, while protecting ours. So, thinking about PPE, thinking about when they should be tested, swabbed, ensuring that we give out care packs. So we give them supplements, a boost their general health and immunity. In terms of also them getting worried that they might get sick, we've also negotiated with all our current insurance coverage to ensure that COVID-related coverage, if it's already not provided for by the government, we take it up. And hopefully, of course, they don't get sick, but at least they know they have this peace of mind that they're covered and protected.
Right. So a lot of people, when they think of the word frontliner, they think of the policemen, they think of the doctors and nurses. But of course, we all know that the security personnel manning the buildings, taking care of aviation security, also very much part of the frontliners as well. So that makes complete sense, and I think you're doing a fantastic job right there. This is a off-topic question, but I think I must ask it right away, which is how do you think travel will be affected post-pandemic? Are we going to spend 5 hours in airports just going through all the checks, or be or along that line? Yeah,
I'll go very quickly.
So
let me do it very quickly. I think actually I don't know. There are pressures. There are things that will cause a slowdown in the amount of time it takes for you to get from home onto the aircraft. But equally, there are many things at play that strive to reduce that. So let me give you an example. There are some airports that are contemplating reserving slots for check-in. So now it's anybody's guess, right? You just kind of go and then you're in a big crowd, and that's the thing of the past. The airports may insist that you don't do that, and you have to check in at a certain very small window, and you miss it, I don't know what's going to happen. So that's going to change what timing means to you as a traveler. So I don't know how it's going to play out. I think that you've asked airport CEOs to touch their heart and figure this out. They wish that someone could tell them what they'll look like as well.
A lot of uncertainty, of course.
A lot of uncertainty.
That makes sense. So thanks for the introduction to all the panelists. For those who just joined us, thank you very much, and please feel free to ask all your questions that you may have to all our panelists today, and we'll try to address as many as we can in the next segment. So now we'll dive straight into the topic of the day, which is culture. So of course, we will now go one more round to each panelist and hear from them a little bit about their company culture and how that is tied to their company's business and performance, and to what extent the pandemic has actually affected our ability to maintain those culture. So we'll start with Budi again from Astra International.
Yeah. Sorry.
So the question is, tell us a bit more about the culture that you have envisioned and that is in place in your company, how that is affecting business and operations, and then how pandemic is affecting that culture.
Okay. So basically, that Astra have our own culture established more than 30 years ago. It's called the Chatur Dharma. Chatur Dharma is Chatur is the four. Dharma is what is it? It's a Dharma. One is how we become to be an asset to the nation, provide the best service to the customers, respect to the individual, and promoting work and continually strive to excellence. So basically, in Astra, our values is really become our foundation and part of our daily life. Is part of our DNA. in almost all aspects that we put it our corporate cultures and values as a foundation to make everything. So based on this case, that our culture is become root for us, and of course this will impact to our company performance. In the pandemic situation now, because one again our culture is already established more than 38 years ago, established in 1982, and every time that we still maintain as a part of our foundation. The pandemic itself is not really impact to our culture, William, because as you know, in Indonesia, the pandemic just started 4 months ago, and work from home just 3 months ago. So basically, the all activities related to working environment and working activities is still can do it properly, and all culture still part of our activity. So basically, until now, that our Chatur Dharma still there, still become our daily life. How we try to strive to excellence when before pandemic, and now in the pandemic situation still same. How we respond to our customer requests on we still same. So basically that we from the pandemic point of view, we don't have is a big impact related to our values, William.
Thank you so much, Budi, for the updates. What about yourself, Flora?
Well, thank you, Willem. I think as a life science company, GSK, has a strong purpose to help our people to do more, feel better, and live longer. So, what's the core of our value to realize that is the transparency, the respect to people, integrity, and patient focus. Um, it's we live our value in every day when we interact with our stakeholders, our patients, and then we feel so glad that we have a team of people that is passionate and courageous and accountable, coming with strong purpose to help us to realize that. um, so when you just asked me about what's going on in this pharma industry, how about the performance and sales, and actually our team are so committed to securing the reliable supply of drugs to our patients, so we can continue to deliver the drugs that are needed by the patients even during the pandemic. Um, for instance, we were able to recognize our essential workers who has contributed to the COVID-19 situation, business the continuity during the COVID-19 situation. And we have tons of people being recognized, regardless whether they are a tech person, they are probably a receptionist, they are probably a facility manager, and even most of them, they are the R&D scientists, the lab people, and the manufacturing workers. They are requested to return to the office to perform the duty, just to make sure that the operation has the resources to run at essential level, even when the city is locked down or the area is locked down. So these people are being recognized globally for their contribution. So to make sure that we really walk our talk to respect and recognize our people even during this difficult time. And I think when talk about the culture is that and GSK as a life science company, how we really take people's well-being, in particular our people's well-being, seriously. For instance, during the working from home period of time, we provided mental training to.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
We provided series of mental training to our leaders. Of course, the initiative is pretty much top down. However, I personally encourage each leader to go through it. It's not only for them to perform the role as a corporate leader, but a role for them to perform at their personal life, that and to take care of the family and people around them. And GSK also conduct series of sections that help people to get tips to let go their anxiety and their emotional issues by a lot of webinars with internal and external experts. So I'm so happy to see that hundreds of people registered in those sessions, and then to talk about the issue they are facing in this very difficult period of time. So people are not alone. They realize that. So I mean this all the different initiatives that we try to really advocate and put forward for our people when the majority of the world have to work remotely. Yeah.
That makes sense. That makes absolute sense. Of course, a strong culture, I think, and a strong purpose is even more important during the pandemic when some employees are feeling lost, feeling directionless. I think that is where the culture can actually be even more important at this point in time. All right. Yep. Yeah, Flora.
Yeah, sorry. I think we have to realize that people's level of anxiety goes up 300 times when they have to answer calls from leaders and team members, from the stakeholders, so from 7 o'clock to 11 o'clock in the evening, and have to reply all the emails. Plus, you may even be jump onto those crisis management calls during the lunchtime when you have to prepare the meal for the kids, right? So we are well aware of the anxiety level and the stress people going through, and then we find our way to support them through this situation. Yeah.
Makes sense. So our culture and our purpose become that anchor that actually pull people back into where they're supposed to be. Now, let's talk a bit about Certis culture, how that has actually helped in your business and your operations, and if whether the pandemic has actually made any changes to that.
Thank you. I have to say, being last on this panel is excellent because Budi and Flora has said everything I needed to say. But I will add on the thing about purpose. So for Certis, being a security company and not just the manpower guarding of it, physical guards standing there, we do a lot of systems. We create a sense of security for buildings. We actually get into facilities management using technology to secure the operations of a place. It's very important that people trust us, and that means that all of us in Certis, whether the frontliners doing the really difficult work of dealing with potential COVID patients, to people fortunate enough to be working from home. Yes, it's not so pleasant. You kind of get in the way of the family and all that. But I feel a lot luckier than some of my colleagues who have to stand on their feet, take on potentially high risk profile stuff. It's still important for us to do things right. Do things that's aligned to our purpose, that's to protect and give a sense of security, sense of well-being to the people that we serve and to the communities that we are in. We would absolutely need to have somebody, if they're walking past a guard wearing a Certis uniform, to feel like that's a person that can go to ask for help, even if that person isn't really securing my condo or my office. And so we focus a lot on getting it right. But I think in this time of COVID, what's happened is that it's even more important to help people do it right with resilience. It's kind of quite easy to do it right when everything is nice and smooth and you've got all your tools. And when you're faced with the stress levels that Flora talked about and Woody talked about and before this talked about, it's very easy to do something differently. I'm glad to report that our guys have been doing that well. And in fact, I was just told, so one of the large clients that we have recently gave out care packs to their staff and to the people who work in and around their offices, contractors, and our guards were one of them, as well as some of facilities management people. And so they gave them all care packs. And in those care packs was cash vouchers. Well, not cash, grocery vouchers, as good as cash. And the only people So everybody accepted the capex, but the only people who took the vouchers and returned it to the company were our staff. And I only know this because I happen to be good friends with the head of HR for that big MNC, and he called me up and told me that. And I was very pleased because, you know what, I'm sure the guards in their situation, where perhaps they've had to spend extra money for the kids to be looked after because of work from home. They've had to pay more for food to be put on the table because, you know what, delivery services may be easy, but certainly they're not cheap. They could easily have taken the $200 and no one would have been the wiser. And they returned it. So I think that's been very important. And so the last point I want to make, which maybe segues to the other things that you want to talk about, William, is empathy. Everybody, to retain a culture that you want, now more than ever, funnily enough and ironically enough with working from home, is the time to be human. And you really have to imagine that there is no way that we as HR practitioners or leaders in general will ever be able to understand the individual circumstances that everybody in your workforce is facing. Don't even try. It's impossible to figure it out. But what you need to do is to really be able to have a culture of understanding, listening, empathy, and in HR, maybe you're going to put out certain policies to help certain people. In the past, it never will be one size fits all. Today, that one size fits all is even going to be less of a possibility. So you got to think of maybe micro things that you need to do that you hope to reach and meet as many different pain points as possible and stress points within your organization.
Right, that makes sense. So of all time, I think this is a time to really double down on culture and purpose. And as Toi Chia has rightly pointed out, empathy and care is of extreme importance right now. So it's not just leaders who are actually facing the challenges. Everyone on the ground have their own challenges that we may not be fully aware of. So show empathy as much as we can. Thank you, gentlemen and Flora, for your very generous sharing of your company's culture and what it meant, to your business. So once again, ladies and gentlemen, those who just joined us, today's webinar is made possible with the support of Elabram WMS, which is a complete cloud-based workforce management system. If you wish to try them out for free, do visit the wms.elabram.com. I think they would have put in the link on the chat room. So again, I think all the panelists agree that culture is very important, if not more so because of the disruption caused by the pandemic. We've seen that many companies from Apple to Marriott to Starbucks are all now revisiting their purpose in a world where the virus can cause so much disruption to the business, right? So what is their culture statement, or what is a purpose statement last year may have to be revisited today and redefine again what their company actually role in the new normal. So along with refining the purpose, many companies that we know of are also looking at realigning the corporate culture for the new normal. So has this happened in your respective companies? And if so, or if it is not, what are the points you feel that you can share for companies who are really at this point in time thinking what the business means to the general world, how to actually structure the culture? Tell us, whether there's any changes to how you look at your culture, and provide some tips, if you may, to the audience on how to do this. I think this round we go the other way around. So we start with Toi Chia first.
Yeah, I think purpose was the word that came up, and again, now more than ever, purpose is the guiding light, because there are many definitions of culture, right? And people try to define what culture is, and one aspect of culture is the collective actions, or what is deemed to be acceptable actions by the collective individuals of an organization. With work from home, it's much harder to see these actions, right? When you're in an office, your actions, the way you behave in a meeting, the way you walk from a place to another place, what you wear, are all clues, symbols, flagposts to what makes culture. We kind of miss that now. And in fact, we are now a collective of individuals, especially those who work from home. And my background, this is my home, it's different from another person's background. So then purpose becomes the anchor point. And I guess my suggestion that we are also trying to work through now for ourselves is to celebrate more activities that are built, initiatives that are built ground up. At one point, there was a suggestion in our company that we should form a committee to enhance the things that we can do for micro programs that we can run for well-being for the organization at large. And we turned it into something like, well, let's not form a committee. Let's allow the like-minded individuals in the organization to rally together, give them a budget, give them very broad parameters that they should not try to cross, but keep them as broad as possible, and let them go, and give them tools to learn who they've helped, who they haven't helped. Give them tools to listen to what their fellow colleagues want and need, and it's almost a ground-up type of kind of movement, but anchored by purpose, and so that starts to become a more robust building up of the culture that you already have. I think you trust the individuals; they know what to do. I think we all know we are in a very difficult winter, and everyone wants really at the bottom of their hearts to row in the right direction and get ourselves out of this as quickly as possible.
Right. Of course, culture and purpose means a very different thing for different companies. For some, it can be something like generosity, right? You're a generous employer, with a generous company to the community, and so on. And because of the pandemic, we hear a lot more of the word health, wellness, not just in a pharma or health companies, but across most companies. I think people look at it and say, health and wellness should now be one of the main pillars of the companies, regardless what you're selling and what you're doing. I think pandemic has actually driven that up quite a fair bit. Flora, what about yourself? Is there any need to revisit what culture means to your company, as well as if there's any tips that you may want to give to the audience on what they should include in their own culture, in a sense?
Yeah, thank you, William. I think Choi has well said what a culture really means to an organization and means to an individual. And then I think actions speak louder than the words. In particular, when I always have to say that in a life science sector, that what makes me proud is every day I come to work. There's a purpose. There's a purpose behind. And then the pandemic is definitely a double-edged sword. That the situation evolves so rapidly and sweeping across the world, with many people even lose their health and lose their life. So I mean, from the business perspective, and if you are an organization that you have built your culture in the past, in the past, that this is actually give you I cannot say it's an opportunity. This is a moment that you can seize to even build your muscle even stronger. So what I have to say is that even from the business landscape in the farmer world, how we work collaboratively with our with other farmers, actually our competitors, to fight for the COVID-19. I mean, about like a few months ago, our CEO Emma Worsley has announced that our collaboration, our partnership with Sanofi, the other vaccine giant, for a vaccine for the COVID-19. So actually, this is how we are seeing that in the business world. We take our joint force with our scientific expertise and proven technology and capability to come together as a commitment to what we really believe as a life science company, to really help people through this difficult COVID-19 situation. I think it's also a good reflection on the culture of the organization. So
that's very interesting. So we learned something totally new today. At one point, I was thinking, right, that the research, the R&D into the vaccine it's more like a goal rush, right? Everybody on their own, and who finds the goal first, and they own the goal, so to speak. So it's good to hear that collaboration is ongoing. That the pandemic has actually united competitors that would otherwise won't talk to each other. So good job.
And then we have to make sure that we're committed that these vaccines will, when it's available for the market, we'll make sure it's affordable and that it's accessible as much as we can for the human community. Yeah, this is our commitment as two companies to the world. Yeah.
Well done. So right there, you have a culture statement already. Right there, I just heard from you. Okay, so last but not least, Budi. So we come back to you.
Yeah.
So same question. So
yeah, I carefully think about your question as well as the sharing from the two other colleagues, because one again in the context of the corporate cultures, especially in our company, the corporate culture is already become a way of life, or we said the DNA of the people's work in our group of company. And pandemic is just 4 months, and basically if we have a corporate culture is to provide the best service to the customer, and we still give the best service to the customer before pandemic, in the pandemic, or post pandemic. So I think maybe only the way to make the best service customers will be changes, will be quite different. Maybe now more use the technology, etc., etc. So back on this, if we go to the high level corporate culture, what I believe that not really impact big enough. But in terms of the detail behaviors, maybe you have to more some adjustment, refinement based on the current condition. Because now that suddenly that we have to use the technology to make the strive to excellence, to make a best service to customer, how we collaborate, something like that. And my suggestion and put it the system to make the adjustment of the behavior more properly with the current condition. But in the high level corporate culture itself, or the values itself of the company, if this corporate culture or the value is already become a way of life of this company, I don't believe only with the 1 year pandemic will be changed the values of the culture. This is our belief. This is my belief actually. Maybe quite different. Maybe I don't know.
Right, that makes sense. To reinforce what you already have, if it's been working for many years and it's something that is at the core of what your company stands for, then there's really no need to redefine it if you think that it's been working all along. Thanks for those who has actually tell us where you're from. We have many audience from Indonesia. Selamat siang, everyone. We also have many audience from Malaysia. If you're from Singapore or Hong Kong, please say hi so that we know that we also have Singaporeans and people from Hong Kong among the audience as well. So now we go through some of the questions that has been asked as we have promised to address them. We have one from Marcel Alexander, and it says here, hello, I'm from Indonesia. Dear Pak Budi, how do you see Astra preparing to face the challenges of the current pandemic against the business impact? Okay. So this one is for Budi, yeah.
Oh yeah, Budi. This for me, yeah.
Yes, of course.
Yeah, Marcel. Yeah, basically that now that I already mentioned before in the first question that Astra, of course, have some challenge, have big challenges, yeah, similar with the other corporation in Indonesia. That our revenue and profitability maybe will be declined more than 50%, etc., etc. So, what is the preparation to face to overcome these challenges? Of course, that first that we create called the scenario planning. So, if the pandemic will be finished in the Q3, how we will react? If the pandemic will be until end of this year, how will be act, something like that. So basically in the strategic wise that we put the scenario planning, And in terms of the financials, of course, that we redefine again all the operating expense and capital expenditure. In terms of the organization, that we really accelerate, we call the organization agility activities, in our group of the company. In terms of the cultures, is only tweak some behavior. So this is the four pillars how we respond with this current condition. Of course, the leaders is the strategy, based on this scenario planning in the every planning, and we put it the organization strategy, the financial strategy, but not really in the cultures, because the culture is still there. This is how we react and how we plan to overcome these challenges in our group of company.
Right. Thank you very much, Budi. We have one question from Listi. Listi must be, I assume, is from Indonesia, but we will direct this question to Flora, because I know that there's another question that's specifically directed to Budi right after this one. So what role company culture plays when it comes to balancing between manpower and manpower costs versus a potential drop in sales?
Well, this is I think this is a tough question, definitely. So if I get it right, so the question is how to make sure that the culture still remains when the organization has to reduce the kind of a manpower due to the top line or bottom line issue, right?
Yeah, I think that is the question, because I think many companies and many markets are facing the issue, at a point where you have to choose whether you should retrench or not retrench staff and layoffs and so on. I think so. What role does culture have to play in this case?
Yeah. I think actually in this situation, I think the culture, number one, we talk about the culture. Actually, it's the action speaks louder than the words, right? So this is also a very critical moment for you to exhibit who you are for your people. And then I think it's unfortunate in a situation when the organization has to go down that path, given the macro economy, given the crisis we are facing. And so, I mean, if I'll expect that each of the organization will examine very critically whether this is the only solution they have to go down to the path. Before that, what are the resolutions? For instance, some of the organization may say that they will cut down some of the administration costs. Some of the organization that they will just choose to freeze the headcount, and some of the organization will choose a different way to no pay leave, right? To mitigate the risk of going down the path of the reduction of the manpower. And if unfortunately there has to go down to that scenario, I think each organization has to be has to demonstrate, number one, of course, it has to make sure that the due diligence is compliant, and then the respect to people, and then try to demonstrate the support to people whenever it's possible. For instance, some people may need a kind of support to transit. What kind of support can we provide to the people who will be about to lose the job, physically, mentally? Do we have resources to provide kind of EAP program to train them for them to get another job? And if some people may face stress issue when they are going through the transition, and what kind of support do we want to provide to people by leveraging the organizational resources we are able to gain for those individuals? I hope this question's being addressed. And then the last one, I would like to say that, I mean, when you have to go down all the path, you have to care the people who unfortunately has to be requested to leave the organization, and yet it's also it brings also impact to the people who remains with the organization. So the people remains here actually are watching you, how you are doing with all this kind of a situation to their peer, to their colleague. So have to think through it if this is the decision to make.
Right. Of course, this is a question that most of us dread, right? Have to go to people that we may even have personally interviewed and hired, and to tell them, look, we no longer need you in the company. So terrible questions that most of us have to go through on a day-to-day basis. So thank you, Flora, for a very enlightening guideline, I would say, on how to go about that. Right. We have many people after I've called for Singaporeans and Hong Kong who are in the room to say hi. We suddenly have a lot of people who say hi. I'm from Singapore and Hong Kong. So we know that we do have quite a regional crowd right here. We have Wawang Wibowo who say, great sharing, everyone. He's from Semarang, Indonesia. I've never been there. I'm now craving to travel anywhere. So I promise you right after the lockdown and pandemic is over, I will go to Semarang and look up for you, Wawang. We have one question. I think this one is specifically targeted to Astra. So Rian Cloudless who asked if AI has already implemented the Chatur Dharma culture many years ago, what main behavior from your employees shown when this pandemic first occurred? So I'm not sure whether you understand that question. So are you seeing your employees exhibiting that Chatur Dharma culture when the pandemic started?
Yeah, actually, that I already mentioned before that is really not changes in our employee behaviors. When we started that all employee have to work from home, it is example. The KPI is still there, the target still there, and how they do it, strive to excellence still there. When that almost all our people have to work from home, and there is some request from customers, something like that, and we still try to provide the best services to the customer. So this is why in the context of Astra, of course, apologize, I talk about in the context of Astra, is really our corporate culture is really become a guiding principle. So even the pandemic came, the behavior of the people still shown that the values there, the values life, and how the employees respond still the same. Only the conditions different. Maybe previously that we can go to the field, meet the customers, and now try to serve, try to contact the customer, from the home, something like that. So back again, the response is quite general, and basically the all values become still our guiding principle to respond in the pandemic situation. This is my explanation relating to Chatur Dharma and how that our employee respond when the pandemic occurred.
So I think this is the really moment of truth, isn't it? All the work that we've done over the past decades and years are now translated. Is it working or is it not working right now, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thank you, Budi, for the answer. We have another question. I think this one will direct to Toicha, since you look like you need some answering.
No, I don't.
To do. But we'll still give this question to you if you understand this. What will be stopped, still used, or reinvent related to work matters that impact to the corporate culture? I know you have addressed this a little bit earlier today, Toicha, right? How has the pandemic affected work processes and operations? I know you have you've mentioned this a little bit earlier, but would you like to elaborate on that?
Oh, this is a very, very wide.
It's a very broad, yeah. So we just
very, very broad. I mean, I'll give you some examples of what we're thinking about, some that we might have done already. So, this is one that we're still thinking about how to do this.
Right.
We used to have a policy where, or thinking on a philosophy where if we happen to have a meeting, hold a meeting over lunch, we would allow the host of that meeting a little bit of money to feed the people to come for lunch. Since you're giving up your precious lunchtime, let's at least do the minimum to make sure stomachs aren't hungry, because there'll be people who have back-to-backs and then the only slot to have lunch would have gone away. So that worked, of course, and it worked very well in a physical setting. With work from home, it's a bit hard to do that, and so we're currently thinking of how to convert that into, maybe could we give them food delivery vouchers to procure the lunch. Now, of course, then the questions like, oh, what if I give the guy a $10 whatever dollar voucher, and he or she squirrels it away and just has like 2 biscuits at home for it. And in this little example, I think it's more of a principle that I think all of us are now faced with a compression of multiple decision making with very different assumptions of what work-life is all about. And there's a whole long debate about work-life boundaries as opposed to work-life balance now. And all I ask for, I guess, for our guys in Certis and maybe everyone as leaders in HR, that we really must do our best to listen and try to shape those policies and be maybe a bit generous if you can in terms of allowing maybe some mistakes to be made, some moral hazards to be allowed. I told my team who was discussing this with me, I said, look, if someone's going to try and abuse a $10 voucher once, it's a mistake or it's a genuine case. This person's going to abuse it twice. You know what? $30 3 times later is a really cheap way for me to figure out whether he or she fits our culture and our behavior. This is a small microcosm of must have been hundreds of decisions that go around what do we supply people in terms of helping them work from home, what wellness programs mean, and that ground up project that we're running now. They do virtual lessons, virtual gym lessons. We actually have fitness instructors in our business. They keep our security guards fit, train them up. We also have a contract to keep our national service folks in the army fit. And these guys have volunteered their time to actually teach lessons catered for certain staff, on top of other things that they pick up in freely available resources on the internet. So there are plenty of these tools. And I think important thing is to assume that work from home, if it's not already done in your organization, will become something that is going to be expected of you, of your corporation, whether by regulation, some form of regulation, and more importantly by your colleagues and your staff. So how do you re-engineer staff engagement, re-engineer staff interaction to be effective at what you're doing and still keep work-life boundaries and work-life balance? And there'll be too many small things to look at for me to list to deal with this.
Right, that makes a lot of sense. I keep hearing throughout this webinar series that we have during the entire pandemic period, words like trust, integrity, especially when it comes to work from home, right? How do you measure performance? How do you manage performance during this period? So a lot of people, keep on throwing the word trust. So thanks for sharing, Deutsche. We have one question from Mali Bubu. I hope I got your name right. This one clearly has got a Flora name written on it. How is the pharma industry utilize tech, whether it's AI or big data, to engage, and during this crisis? What action is being taken to help employees to upskill themselves to handle this crisis? So they may or may not be ready. So how do you help the employees be ready? At the same time, how do you use tech to actually try and defend whatever you have, your business and so on during this period? So 2 questions there actually.
Okay. Thank you for the question. And I may not be an expert to answer question number 1. So definitely, AI has been so much leveraged, much more than before in this COVID-19 situation. When the R&D scientists try to understand what's going on behind, and then when we try to produce the the vaccines or ethical drugs to deal with the COVID-19 situation. It happens in the pharma world, and then we definitely from the report everybody access to from the John Hopkins Hospital report everybody access to, it tells us what's going on for the in the entire world, what's happening. And number one, and number two is that when you're asking about how the pharma sector is trying to upskill their employees through the crisis, right? When you say upskill, I mean, in addition to the technical skills that we typically think about, we are so much committed to improve people's capability. And for instance, in GSK, we are in a modern employee journey. We talk about be you, feel good, keep growing. And when we talk about keep growing, that's how you're going to keep it the best yourself, right? By going along the lifelong learning journey. So in the COVID-19 situation, a lot of leverage has been, technology has been leveraged. For instance, we have our linking learning to our people. We have our keep growing campus to our people, which we form the learning community when people can ask questions and share their comments and leverage a lot of technology. And then and the upscale also means that how we do our business by leveraging the digital way, right? And yet we have to be very clear about ourselves that digital ways will not replace 100% the face-to-face people interaction. How we try to find a balance between both. And then on the other side is that I think Budi and Chacha also talk about a lot, and then in terms of resilience. So upscale, when we talk upscale, in addition to the technical skills, we also talk a lot on our emotional resilience, right? And then how you get yourself bounce back quickly dealing with this kind of situation. Like I just mentioned, we offer different sessions, different trainings for leaders and our people to be aware of their situation, and even to detect the signals that the team members or the people around them may get into a kind of emotional issue, and what are the tactics and conversation he or she can get into. And then this is all I think I can probably think about in a at high level how we are trying our best to upscale our people in a pharma sector. Yeah.
Right. Thank you, Flora. Very enlightening. Of course, I think during this pandemic period, we're not just looking at testing our leadership IQ and EQ, but also our AQ, right? Our adversity quotient. How resilient we are as leaders, how resilient we are as a community and as an organization. We have a follow-up question from Bawang Wibowo from Semarang, and we have Toicha answer this one. So this is a common theme. A lot of people, a lot of industries, even leaders, employees, are very concerned about the role of AI and how it might displace our jobs, right? So I think the question here is AI is eating the world. Every company will be an AI company. So what happened next? So this is a real, yeah.
We actually have a Center of Excellence for Artificial Intelligence in our global headquarters in Singapore. So AI is a topic that we are playing with. I don't think anyone can claim to be an expert in AI. It's a tool that in itself and a science that's evolving. But even AI, the direction of AI has changed drastically over as it has matured. And the key edges of AI now is not about computing power, which is assumed to keep increasing. And the fun fact, computers can now, there are 2 computers in the world now that can compute as quickly as the human brain. So that's a big milestone that happened about 6 months ago. But the real edge in AI now is the interface between humans and AI. And I don't mean the activity interface, but as a company or as a business leader, how do you understand the AI that you wield and the power of AI that you wield in your hands but the folks who create it for you, so that you know how to use it and know how to complement it with the other assets that you have, whether it's property assets or people assets and what have you. And traditionally, AI has been in the black box. So you kind of throw it lots of patterns, and it'll give you a bit of a pretend magic answer, right? And we'll be the company who takes that answer and just uses it. Because you want to talk about culture killer, that's a major culture killer, because it'll do things with absolutely no humanistic value to it, nor in accordance with your business purpose. And so there's a lot of science, funnily enough, now that's about unpacking the black box so that leaders actually understand what the AI, translate what the AI has come up with, and the hypothesis and the logic. And that's what I think is very important about AI. And hopefully AI becomes, I'm not sure about AI eating every company, but I would hope that every company, AI progresses in a way that everybody can take advantage of AI, no different from how we take advantage of email. I mean, you don't call anyone an email company, right? You just use it because it makes your life that much better and makes your business that much more efficient and effective. Data analytics is already maybe halfway between AI and that. So I think it's something we should embrace. And I'm really happy that the science and the people who are the AI experts are really starting to incorporate human thinking into humanizing AI and making it actionable. So nothing to be afraid of. I think actually it's wonderful that more and more people embrace it.
Right, that makes sense.
I do want to add one thing, which is that part of the A, which you mentioned just now. I think you mentioned adversity quotient. At the risk of overrunning, just one word that I think has been very important for me, and I hope for my organization and more, and that's adaptability and agility, actually, more agility. COVID, whether it's AI or technology, has forced many things to change. And as leaders, we really must be agile for how we respond. We cannot use old methods, rely on old assumptions. We have to be agile about the context because that's the environment that's changed. We must be agile about our stakeholders because our stakeholders would have changed in their expectations about us as a company and us as an organization in the community. There's an agility of thinking, innovation, and innovative creating new ideas. And the most important thing is actually the agility of self-leadership. If you could lead in a certain way where you could meet all your folks face to face, now you have to lead through work from home. That requires a sense of self-leadership agility too. So for me, that's a lot more important in ensuring that the culture and the purpose survives through this period for the company.
Thanks, Pacha. Very, very extensive answer there. Very good. Thank you very much. We do have a few more questions from the audience, and we did promise to say we try and answer as much as we can, but I think we are getting very close to the end of the session. So if you're not able to answer everyone's question, our apologies for that. So I think we'll now go around one round, starting with Budi and then Flora and then Pacha to basically summarizes what you have in mind, any other points you'd like to bring out, any other thoughts that you have that you'd like to share with the listeners. So this can also be addressed to answer some of the outstanding questions that there are. But feel free to say whatever you want, any thoughts that come out, any advice that you may have. We start with Budi.
I only will comment what I believe in this pandemic situation and what is the new normal, that I also share my thoughts and ideas in the various webinars. Previously, last year and last 2 years, that heavily we talk about the revolution industry 4.0 and future of work. And suddenly pandemic came. As we know that the driver of the revolution industry 4.0 as well as the future of work is the advanced technology. And now suddenly that we really have to utilize the technology. So in this perspective, what I believe, when we go to the new normal and we suddenly there is some acceleration how we work in the new way, how we deliver our solution in the new way through technology. So I believe in the new normal is the acceleration of the context of the future of work that already discussed many times last year and last 2 years.
Makes sense, Budi. So a lot of people say new normal, but as Budi has mentioned, new normal is actually just what is normal but accelerated, right? Whether you like it or don't like it, working from home is the future. Digitalization is the future. But of course, the pandemic has actually speed all that up. What would have been 3 years now is 3 weeks, right? Budi, I think that's the thanks for sharing. Very insightful right there. Flora, any last words?
Okay, I think it just came across the old saying that this shall too pass. You know, the crisis shall to pass, and the difficult time shall to pass, and then what comes to us more is the our wisdom and our agility to deal with the crisis as human being or as organization of the community. Well, technology AI has been talked a lot right nowadays, but I would like to hold back a little bit, and definitely I think we will have to leverage a lot of technology, and yet we still have to take the right balance with the human touch. This is very interesting that on the other day, we now assume normal, and then I call a meeting, and my team is all in the office, and they just get on at Microsoft Team and speak to the video. I say, hey guys, I book a meeting room, come to the meeting room and let's talk. I say, face to face, you know, we and in particular we are human resources people. We can always just talk to the camera. Let's talk to the people in person. And then actually, when I think about the way when we work from home, while we have to spend long time in front of our computer, because when we used to do face to face, we just swing by, have a conversation, have a small talk, issue can be resolved. Now we have to make a call, we have to reserve a meeting, we have to make everything possible to get the people. So just want to take the right balance. And I always alert that to myself, since I'm also human resource people. I got to have the human people touch with our people. Yeah.
Right, that makes a lot of sense as well, Flora. I remember what you said earlier. You know, action speaks louder than words. We can give out all kind of gift vouchers and whatnot, but nothing really compares to walking up to that employee and saying, you know, thanks for your hard work, and really showing genuine care and concern. Last but not least, Toicha, to summarize and to provide whatever last words you may have.
I'm gonna thank all of you for helping me think through what I want to say, and actually it's more of a summary than I use one word to summary. Actually, we never use this words, guys, yet. I'm a bit surprised now that I remember. It's called communicate. So there are various versions of that, right? That we've kind of talked about, but definitely communicate. It's actually, funnily, a lot easier to communicate in many ways from work from home, because it's just one Zoom call away. When in the past, some meetings you might have, some communications you might have thought you had to physically get together to meet, and now a Zoom call or video conference like this happens. I would have to fly to where this conference was to do this, and now this is so easy, right? I was doing something else before, and I'm here. So, but communicate and be thoughtful about your communication. Communicate as an individual, as a human. Communicate even more as HR, because you represent the bulk of the humans. I mean, the body of the humans in the organization. Communicate as leadership, because everybody's trying to figure things out. If you don't communicate, they don't know what you are trying to figure out, and maybe they can help you, and maybe they can tell you what actually they really need. And so yeah, keep communicating. I think work from home doesn't get in the way of it. In fact, I really believe that makes it better. Take full advantage of that.
Right. Thanks for wrapping that up. Communicate, Toicha. Thanks. So, ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our webinar today. I would like to take this opportunity to thank our three panelists for volunteering their time, despite their very busy schedule, to generously share their knowledge and experience. So on behalf of HR Asia and Elabram, I would like to thank Pak Budi, Flora, and Toicha for being part of today's webinar. So if you agree, thank you, everyone. So to all the audience, if you agree with me that all our panelists have done a fantastic job, please type 10 in the comment section, 10 in the comment section to give them a full mark for the job well done. You have all been a fantastic audience. If you have not done so, please subscribe to this YouTube channel so that you will be notified of new webinars and new content that is coming up. Today's recording is also going to be shared on our Facebook page by this Sunday. So feel free to share with your colleagues or friends who may have missed out on this. Once again, thank you. Terima kasih. 谢谢. 多謝大家. Cảm ơn. Selamat po. Kokun kap. And keep the social distancing and stay safe. Thank you, everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, William.
Thanks, Willie. Thanks, Roger. Bye.
Okay. Nice to meet you again. Okay.